To me, one of the single most useless research questions, as I say, is what is your impact? Because firstly, you can never get a reliable answer to that. And secondly, even if you know the answer, it doesn't help you.
Okay, so heads up, this is like a really heady process. Normally with our lessons, you can just do the process as you watch the lesson. You might want to watch this all the way through so you get your head around it, then go back to the start and actually do it.
You've been asked to create an intervention, and you know that you'll need to have some monitoring and evaluation material to convince funders and others. So how do you start? The first step is to define your research question.
So in a perfect world, we would just be given a guidebook on how to run our intervention, all backed by research on what's going to work best. But it's not a perfect world and that doesn't exist. So instead, we've got to figure out what questions might that guidebook answer. So what questions, if we had the answer to them, would change the way we do our work? This might be a really big thing for the organization, or it might be tactical on a program by program level. What you're going to do is get together with your team and just list all of the big unanswered questions for your program.
Have a meeting, it might be a morning, you might want to brainstorm some possible research questions and then to prioritize those within the team. Maybe start with the various parts of your intervention which you could change. If we vary X, what happens to Y? Why is our mentoring program 6 weeks long? Why is it not 10 weeks long or 2 years long? And you just need agreement about that within your team so that when you come back with the answer or when you design the data gathering to answer that question, everybody's clear about why you did that.
Now you can keep track of this any way you want, but we've got a template you can download in the resources. The first thing is to list all of the parts of your program that you can vary, and then that list of 10 to 20 questions that you've come up with at the end.
There's a really nice quote from Archie Cochrane, who was one of the founders of evidence-based medicine, who said, "What will you do if the answer to the test is A or if it is B? If A and B are the same, then don't do the test. If knowing the answer to this question is not going to inform anything, then it's not really helpful to do." Look for some aspect of program design that you could in principle vary. A choice, basically. Could your mentoring program be a different length? Could your outdoor intervention program be a different length or in a different place? Something that you can actually vary.
It can be tricky to understand the scope of the questions that we're asking. So kind of have a think, if you're running really operational stuff like a program, ask operational questions. How long should we run the intervention? How much should it cost, et cetera, et cetera. If you're in leadership or a founder, you should probably be asking whole organization questions about vision and scope and the basic mechanisms of the org. Either way, it's important to recognize that most people are not particularly good at asking these questions because we don't do it much running an org. So it will hurt a little the first time round, but you'll get better and better the more you do it. Should we just collect a whole ton of data and then later figure out what questions we can ask the data?
The more data that you try to gather from individuals, particularly vulnerable individuals, the lower the quality is likely to be because people just get fed up with answering great long surveys. So I saw one just the other day. A charity working in criminal justice in the UK sent me their data gathering plan, and it was the longest list of data fields I think I've ever seen. And it was asking all kinds of stuff about age and gender and ethnicity and background and everything you can think of about the people. And when I asked why they were measuring all of this, they weren't really very clear. So there is value in concision because it drives up the quality. People might answer 3 or 4 questions properly, but after question 25, it's all over. Give Directly is a charity which distributes cash to very poor people, I think mainly in Kenya. And they were founded by researchers and based on rigorous research. But they still do a lot of research, and it's really of this type that it's designed around a decision that they might actually make. So they look at, for example, does it make any difference if they choose the households to which they distribute cash using this method or that method? Does it make any difference if they deliver cash in these size dollops or those size dollops? And you can see immediately that the answer to that will feed into what they actually do. It's a practical, it's an actionable question.
Okay, so to recap, we're going to have a conversation and just make a list of questions that we think are worth answering. We're going to get rid of all of the ones that won't materially change our work. You should end up with a list of 5 to 10 questions that you believe are important for your organization.
People are generally relieved by doing this process. By the end, they'll know what questions they need to be answered, but also what questions they don't need to answer, and therefore questions on which they don't need to gather data. They're really clear about what aspects of their program can be changed to affect the impact that they're having.